Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick Lepri, and today I am joined with Matt Gajewski, and we are going to be doing a 12-team PPR mock draft on Sleeper. Inside of today's video, we're going to be doing a head-to-head mock draft, so we're not going to be drafting the same team, and at the end of the video, we're going to see who ended up drafting the better team. I'm going to be drafting from the 3 slot, and Matt's going to be going from the 11 spot. So, Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm really looking forward to this mock. You and I have talked about all these players. We've done best ball teams together, but we've never gone head to head. So I want the people to tell me who is the better team at the end of this. Pretty confident in my skills, but we'll have the people decide.
Yeah, exactly. It should be a fun time. So before we get on into things, guys, if you are new to the channel, please make sure that you do hit that subscribe button down below. And whether you are new to the channel or not, make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help us out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do so at NotoriousFNTSY. And then you can follow Matt at Matt_Gajewski. It is on the screen as well right now. To make it a little bit easier, I edited that onto the screen because I'm just that good at it. So let's get on into the video. So I will start the draft right now. And I'm at the 3 slot, so it will be my first pick. The first pick of the draft was Jonathan Taylor, followed by Austin Eckler. I don't think that that is very out of the ordinary at all. At 3, while I do understand that Christian McCaffrey at this point, people throw the injury-prone marker at him. You always talk about how there's no real injury-prone players. He's just been in the league long enough to get hurt, which is basically what you say, right? That's correct?
Yeah, it's my little adage. You're either in the league long enough to get hurt or you're just too young.
Yeah, so that's why we're going to go with Christian McCaffrey here. If you don't want to go Christian McCaffrey, then I think the pick would either be Cooper Kupp or Derrick Henry. Personally, I will go with Christian McCaffrey here, and then we'll move on to your pick. Make sure you guys are actually paying attention to the screen because we're not going to read off every single pick in between hours. So you are up right now.
I'm in a really interesting spot here because 4 of the top 5 receivers, and I think there is a big 5 went off the board. We're talking about Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, and Jamar Chase. I'm pretty confident with my ability to come back on running back in the second round. So I'm going to scoop up the last of the big 5 wide receivers and take Stephon Diggs with my pick. And then I'm basically on the clock again. Joe Mixon and Tyreek Hill went in between me. And I think this is actually a really tough spot to draft. You can either take like Travis Kelce's at the top of the board here for me, or I think running back's a solid place to look here. And it looks like Sleeper's a little lower on Aaron Jones. He's a player that I actually have ranked pretty high here, and he's the highest player on my board. So I'm going to solidify the running back position with Aaron Jones, a player who probably sees more targets this year, maybe a little less carries, but still an efficient offense.
I like both of those picks. So I'm going to be back up on the board. Between me goes Travis Kelce, Nick Chubb, DeAndre Swift, Josh Allen, CeeDee Lamb, Alvin Kamara, and Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews is quickly rising up draft boards and is going to be a second round pick in basically every single draft. I'm up now, and I am shocked that there's one player still available, and that is going to be Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel, to me, you could have ranked higher than Tyreek as well as CeeDee Lamb and have him ranked inside of the top 6. Maybe he doesn't crack the top 5 for you, but to me, he should be a top 6 wide receiver. He does run the ball a decent amount as well. We did actually talk about Deebo Samuel recently, so pretty interesting that he ends up falling to me. That would be my pick here. I'm not as sold on Saquon Barkley or Javonte Williams. After I picked Deebo came Leonard Fournette, Javonte Williams, Mike Evans, and Saquon Barkley. I already have one running back, and now I have Deebo Samuel. So one running back, one wide receiver. I'm not as high on Kyle Pitts as some people. I would probably prefer to draft either George Kittle or Darren Waller over him, but I'm not going tight end here. I'm just going to pick the best player available, in my opinion, and that is A.J. Brown, a situation where he goes from one offense that doesn't throw the ball a lot in Tennessee to another offense that doesn't throw the ball a lot. I do think that A.J. Brown will be able to get it done, though, on efficiency alone. So Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and A.J. Brown will be the start to my team.
I love the start to your team, and we've talked a lot about the wide receiver position. I do think there is a pretty clear drop-off once you get to around the Keenan Allen range. So right now, when I'm on the board, we've now seen behind you Ezekiel Elliott, Keenan Allen, Kyle Pitts, Cam Akers, T. Higgins, Pat Mahomes, and Justin Herbert come off the board. It's a lot of quarterbacks early, but it's also a lot of the premier receivers. And I think every receiver after this has some significant questions. The highest player on my board right now is actually Darren Waller. So to your point, I like taking him early, but I think I can wait here and get him in the next round. So I'm going to take James Conner, a running back who I think is locked into a 3-down workload in Arizona. I know they bring in Darrell Williams, but he's been a timeshare back throughout his career. And last year he was outplayed by Derek Gore. So I think he's more or less just insurance than anything else. And I wouldn't be surprised if he starts the year behind Keontae Ingram or Eno Benjamin, whoever wins that 3 job. So James Conner handled a 3-down workload when we saw Chase Edmonds injured last year. I'm going to go ahead and take him. And then my strategy did work at the 11 pick. Darren Waller is still on the board for me. I'm going to solidify that tight end position and take one of the premier receiving threats in the game.
I like those picks. So after you went with Darren Waller came David Montgomery, DK Metcalf, George Kittle, Josh Jacobs, Brees Hall, Jalen Waddle, and Terry McLaurin. I am on the board here. I have 2 receivers, 1 running back. Right now, the tight ends have basically all came off of the board, the big 5, in my opinion, which is Andrews, Kelsey, Kittle, Pitts, and Darren Waller. So I'm looking away from tight end. If you guys have watched us do our best ball drafts, I'm a lot more likely to draft a quarterback in the first 5 rounds in a best ball draft compared to a redraft league here. I'm not even looking at quarterback at all. I'm just going to go with the best player available. And in my opinion, this is kind of a little bit of a reach for some people, but my pick is going to be Travis Etienne. I think that without James Robinson for probably a majority of the season, if not the whole season, Etienne is going to step into a humongous role in this offense. I understand the Jaguars are far from an amazing fucking offense, but at the end of the day, they should be better this year without Urban Meyer. And I think that just as a whole, the team is definitely better than what we had last year or what they had last year. I'm not a Jacksonville Jaguars fan. After I went with ETN came Amari Cooper, Lamar Jackson, Chris Godwin, and Kyler Murray. So a lot of quarterbacks have already came off the board. If you play in a sharper league, typically this won't happen. But in your normal fantasy football league where you're playing with the average people that watch football, this is what is going to happen. So we're back up on the board here. 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a very balanced approach, which is going to be pretty normal for me. I'm not super bullish on either running backs or wide receivers early on. The running backs here, J.K. Dobbins, Elijah Mitchell, I'm not too sold on them, so I will go with a wide receiver. I think if Baker Mayfield goes to Carolina, which seems like maybe possible, then I'm drafting DJ Moore. But right now, based upon what we know about the Carolina Panthers and the fact that it's Sam Darnold, I'm going to be going with Michael Pittman Jr. I just think that he is going to be the clear number 1 guy in this offense. I think the offense takes a step up with Matt Ryan under center.
I love both your picks. I would have taken ETN where you were just because I'm not sure he would have been there if you waited till the 5th round. So I think just solidifying that is solid. And then you waited on receiver. When you look at the differences between Cooper, Godwin, and Pittman, I don't think they're drastic. So waiting for Pittman in the spot you got him makes a lot of sense to me. In between our picks went Michael Thomas, Jerry Jeudy, Joe Burrow, DJ Moore, Marquise Brown, Cortland Sutton, and J.K. Dobbins. So that leaves me on the board with TJ Hawkinson, Elijah Mitchell, Allen Robinson, Dalton Schultz, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire as the top players available. It's an interesting spot to draft. And one player who's going significantly higher than this in a lot of leagues is Mike Williams. He's a player that I like a lot, but I also like Allen Robinson. Running back position, it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Elijah Mitchell at the top. I already have tight end, so I'm not going to reach on Hawkinson. The top player on my board is still Mike Williams, so I'm going to take that attachment to Justin Herbert. Keenan Allen is getting a little older, and Mike Williams has played very well, albeit in small samples, but I think he can get it done in an explosive offense. And between us, Dalton Schultz, Allen Robinson come off the board, and it is back to me. I wanted to bring this back with Allen Robinson. It's a very heartbreaking here for me on the clock. Again, it's between Elijah Mitchell, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and then at the top of the wide receiver board, it's now DeAndre Hopkins, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brandon Cooks, Treylon Burks. It's a really tough spot to be in. I already have 2 running backs, 2 receivers. So I'm going to try to land one of these premier wide receivers and take a safer approach with Brandon Cooks. Took a player who already is a little bit of a projection in Mike Williams, but Brandon Cooks, still only 28 years old, puts up nothing but 1,000-yard receivers and already did so in the offense with Davis Mills. They retain their OC, so I think the targets are going to be there for Cooks.
Yeah, Brandon Cooks is one of my favorite players right now going in fantasy football drafts. The guy has just been uber consistent his whole career, regardless of which 72 teams he's been on. And I think at Houston, even with Davis Mills, he should be just fine, just like he was last year. So I'm up on the board here. After with Cooks came Elijah Mitchell, Hawkinson, Kenneth Walker, Miles Sanders, Burks, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Drake London. I think if you take Kenneth Walker in the 6th round, you just basically shot your team in the foot. So I'm glad that that was not me or you who made that pick, because I would have had to talk about it a little bit more. So I'm back up on the board here. 3 receivers, 2 running backs. At tight end, I like Goddard, I like Knox, I like Ertz, but do I love them enough to take them here? The answer is no. The running backs are not so very nice here. So I'm going to go wide receiver, and we are going to go with one of my favorite wide receivers in the late round. It's between these three, or not in the late rounds, just in the middle rounds. That's Amon-Ra St. Brown, Adam Thielen, or Darnell Mooney. I like all three of them. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be the number one guy in Detroit. Adam Thielen's the clear number two, and then Darnell Mooney's the number one there in Chicago. For me, I'm going to go with the upside of Amon-Ra St. Brown, and maybe he does have that crazy target share that he had at the end of last season. After Amon-Ra St. Brown came Damian Harris, A.J. Dillon, DeAndre Hopkins, and Elijah Moore. Now, if this league could have an IR spot, I'm fine drafting DeAndre Hopkins. If not, I'm staying clear away. I'm up on the board here. Looking at quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, Tom Brady. I'm not someone who loves drafting a quarterback inside the top 5 rounds, but now we're in round 7, and I see a quarterback that I think could be number 1 at the end of the year. That's Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts' rushing upside is just so immense. I understand they're not going to be throwing the ball at this crazy clip. I also have a Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown stack. I'm not necessarily looking to stack in redraft leagues, but he was the guy I was going to take anyway, so I'm going with Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, when the stack works out, it just works out. And you add in a little correlation, a little more upside. So I like it. Between our picks went Adam Thielen, Kareem Hunt, Juju Smith-Schuster, who I am not touching at this point in drafts, Devontae Smith, Darnell Mooney, really good value there for team number 8, Rashad Bateman, Garrett Wilson. And that puts me on the board. I have 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and 1 tight end already. I don't love the quarterbacks in this position. We're looking at Dak, Russell Wilson. Top of the running back board is Cordarrelle Patterson, Tony Pollard, Devin Singletary. Little bit of questions there. Receiver, we're looking at Tyler Lockett. Cordarrelle Patterson, again, he is dual eligibility here. If that were the case in your home league, I think you lock in Cordarrelle Patterson. And then tight end is Goddard Knox. This isn't typical, but I think, correct me, I want to hear what you think. Do you believe Cordarrelle Patterson is the clear pick here if he has the dual eligibility? Because I personally do.
I think that, yeah, if he has dual eligibility, it depends on the website sleeper he does, and I believe NFL last season he did, so I'd assume on NFL to be the same thing this year.
Okay, so we're going to go with the de facto rankings here. Otherwise, Cordarrelle Patterson would not be my pick if it was running back only, but he is both, so I'm going to take him, which is a little bit new for me, but like that I can use him at both. And then it's back up to me on the board. Same players, basically. In between went Russell Wilson and Tony Pollard. A little early for Tony Pollard, in my opinion, when you have standalone backs like Chase Edmonds, James Cook available there. Quarterback, still the same situation. But I think it's going to be really hard for me to pass on wide receiver again. I'm looking at my team. It's Aaron Jones, James Conner, and I guess I can use Cordarrelle there. But Gabriel Davis is still on the board. And he's not a player I love taking inside the top 24. But man, I already have 3-4 receivers I can use on a weekly basis. If I'm just shooting at pure upside here, Gabriel Davis in his position as the wide receiver 2 on the Buffalo Bills, the most explosive offense in football, I think I have to go with it.
I agree. I mean, the biggest difference between the underdog drafts we've done in this draft is just how far some players have fallen, and Gabe Davis is one of them, right? In the 8th round, you have to take him in like the 4th, 5th round of underdog drafts. And speaking of underdog, they're the sponsor of today's video. Please make sure you guys do check out Underdog Fantasy. They're the best place to play fantasy football this summer. The Best Ball Mania 3 tournament has $10 million in total prize money. And the best thing about Best Ball, all you got to do is the draft. The draft is the most fun part of the fantasy football season. In my opinion, all you got to do is draft your team and you can forget about it. The Underdog Fantasy team will automatically, the computer, I should say, it's not like they have some intern just throwing the best guys in, right? Will automatically put the best scores in every single week into your lineup. Last year's Best Ball Mania champion drafted in June, so there is no reason to wait. Make sure you draft now. And our channel is probably going to be changing names relatively soon. We are rebranding from Awesemo to Stochastic. So promo code Stochastic, STOKASTIC. And if you use that, Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. So if you deposit $100, they will give you an additional $100. That's $200. And that is good for 4 entries into the Best Ball Mania 3 tournament. Head on over to underdogfantasy.com right now, or go into the App Store, or just download it, or just click on the link in the video description. Stochastic, promo code Stochastic, STOKASTIC. All right, back on into the video. I'm going to go here with not a tight end, even though I do like Dawson Knox. I am going to be going with his teammate, Devin Singletary. I only have 2 running backs. We are starting 3 receivers in this league and 1 flex. So you don't necessarily need to go crazy drafting a million running backs early. But I think Devin Singletary is the clear number 1 in this backfield. I think people are going to like James Cook, and for good reason. But at the end of the day, Singletary was super effective at the end of the season. So I like that pick there. And then after that, The wide receivers are a little bit dicey. We've got guys like Robert Woods, Christian Watson, Chase Claypool. I'm pretty confident with my wide receivers, so I'm just going to take another shot on the running back position here and go with a running back that I understand is going to be in a humongous split share, but that is going to be Melvin Gordon. If Javonte Williams was to go down in the 9th round, I just selected potentially a top 5 running back. If Javonte Williams stays healthy, I selected a guy that could probably be a top 18 running back and be viable in certain matchups. It is going to be hard to figure out when you actually want to play him. But at the end of the day, I think there's worse picks than Melvin Gordon here. So that will be my pick. After I went with Gordon, James Cook came off the board, Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, Freiermuth, Gajewski, Chase Claypool, Michael Carter, and now you are up.
Puts me on the board. So the running back position is interesting right now. It's James Robinson, who I don't think should be drafted in most leagues. Isaiah Spiller, Ramondre Stevenson, and Ronald Jones. Don't love the top of the board here. The reason I don't like James Robinson is the late season Achilles tear. There's a good chance he misses the whole season. Wide receivers, Woods, Watson, Jamison Williams, Kirk. A lot of concerns there. Williams dealing with an ACL tear. When's he ready? Woods is likely the wide receiver 2 in a run-heavy offense. And Watson may be anything from the wide receiver 1 to the wide receiver 4 in Green Bay. So I'm going to take my first quarterback, and it is Trey Lance. I consider him to be a supreme value at this point in the draft. With the news that Jimmy Garoppolo was sent away for minicamp, he's still rehabbing an injury. It very much looks like Trey Lance is going to be the starter and start all the games as long as he's healthy. He has the Jalen Hurts style upside from the ground, and then whatever he gives you as a passer in the Kyle Shanahan offense. So I love him here. And now I'm on the clock again. In between my picks went Robert Woods and James Robinson. The same backs and receivers are on the board, which I don't love. So to me, I have to go with my second tight end here, which is a little crazy in redraft leagues. But Rob Gronkowski is just such a premier value at this point in drafts. This comes down to him being active, but all accounts and all reports coming out of Tampa Bay suggest that he'll be back. If you're using a tight end flex league, I don't mind this approach either because you could potentially use Waller and Gronk in the flex, one of them in the flex on bye weeks, but it's just a lot of upside to pass up at this point, even though I don't normally like going 2 tight ends this early.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I mean, I think Gronk is going to shoot up probably to the 7th, 8th round the second he commits to the Bucks. That has not happened yet, but in my opinion, it will. You're on the same standpoint. After you took Gronk, came Isaiah Spiller, Christian Watson, Deshaun Watson, Derek Carr, Sky Moore, Javonte Williams, not Javonte Williams, Jamal. Am I dumb?
Jamal Williams, yeah.
Jamal Williams. Why did it say wide receiver? But okay.
Oh, that's Jamison Williams. Sorry, Detroit. Jamal and Jamison on the same team. You're right.
Yeah, that was a big brain fart by me. I apologize. Kadarius Toney, and now I am up. I don't have a single tight end yet, but I'm not super worried yet. But I actually am because Hunter Henry is my highest ranked tight end. I think Hunter Henry could potentially finish inside the top 8. Very touchdown dependent, but he seems like the red zone weapon that Mac Jones likes to use. We still have 4 picks to go at this point. So I'm pretty confident that I can build a solid bench. We didn't use kickers or defenses in these drafts. I think most leagues still use kickers and defenses. Make sure you don't draft one of those early on. Just wait till the last 2 picks. So my final pick here, before I give it back to you, is going to be Allen Lazard. I like Kenny Golladay, but I think there is a chance that Allen Lazard is the number 1 receiver on this team. And in the 11th round, when you get a guy who could be the number 1 receiver with Aaron Rodgers, I'm willing to take that shot.
Love your picks. They make a lot of sense to me. Allen Lazard is a player that I definitely want to get a lot of. And then a really tough run for me. A lot of players I was looking at this pick just came off the board. I like Christian Kirk as the wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville. Kirk Cousins, Michael Gallup, Dameon Pierce, Kenny Golladay, a player that I love in a new New York Giants offense with Brian Daboll as OC. Tua Tagovailoa, and then Russell Gage, a player I've been drafting aggressively with a Chris Godwin who is hurt ahead of him. So most of my receivers came off the board, which is really tough for me to see. The top of the board is George Pickens, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Jarvis Landry, Rondale Moore, Jacoby Myers, Jahan Dotson, DJ Chark. Don't love that run out. And then at running back, we're looking at Alexander Madison, Rashad White, Nyheim Hines, Darrell Henderson, Tyler Algier. Tough spot for me in a dead zone of the draft. I think I'm just going to have to shoot on upside wide receivers here at this point. So to me, I'm going to draft Marquez Valdez-Scantling, a player that was actually paid more than Juju Smith-Schuster and should play that field stretching role for Kansas City as long as he can get on the field. That is a concern here, but again, just drafting for upside, so he is the pick. In between went Nyheim Hines and George Pickens. Nyheim Hines is not a guy I'm considering anywhere close to the 12th round. He needs 2 injuries to be active in a 3-down workload, which just isn't going to happen. I have 3 backs, so I'm going to look to this position again. I think right now, Alexander Madison, Rashad White, Daryl Henderson are all really interesting picks. The player I would take highest at this point is Gus Edwards, but I'm having an internal dilemma selecting Gus Edwards this high. He's coming off the board at, pick 180 here. He's in the 170s on underdog. I think he's very much the best value, but generally you can wait and get him later. So I'm not going to take him. And instead, I'm going to take a player I think that might have some standalone value in the Rams. Daryl Henderson playing behind Cam Akers, who was incredibly inefficient last year. They no longer have Sony Michel. So I think his role could be fine as a standalone. And then if Cam Akers gets hurt, you know what you're working with Henderson. We've already seen it.
Yeah, I like both of those picks. After you went with Darrell Henderson came Jacoby Myers, Albert O, Alexander Mattison, Rashad White, Irv Smith, Noah Fant, and Justin Fields. I'm up here. I'm going to go with a guy that I've taken in a lot of our best ball drafts. That's going to be DJ Chark. I think that if Jameson Williams misses half the season, DJ Chark will be the number 2 receiver. But actually, I fucking lied because I already have Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm not going to draft 2 receivers on the Detroit Lions. That would be crazy. So I'm going to go with Jarvis Landry, wide receiver of the New Orleans Saints. I think Jarvis Landry is going to fit in pretty well there. And if Michael Thomas ends up just quitting on the team or something, maybe he is the number 2 receiver on the team. And getting that in the 12th round is pretty nice. After I went with Landry came Moore, Shark, Dotson, and Algier. I'm back up on the board here. I don't really love any of these players. It's hard to love anyone this deep on into the draft, but I do see a wide receiver that I think could be the number 1 on his team, and that is going to be Devontae Parker, wide receiver of the New England Patriots. Normally, my draft strategy in a 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, tight end, 1 flex league is going to be to draft more running backs than receivers, but this is 3 wide receivers and 1 flex. I want to be getting more wide receivers in this type of a league. So I'm going to go with Devontae Parker. I also like Alec Pierce at this pick. And if you have an IR spot, I also wouldn't mind drafting Odell, throwing him on the IR, and then picking up someone after the draft. That's just a little bit of different strategy some people use that I always use.
Like your picks here, after you made the selection, David Njoku, Tyler Higbee, Marlon Mack, JD McKissick, Raheem Mostert, Kenneth Gainwell, and Trevor Lawrence came off the board. So it's essentially all running backs at this point, but I'm finally going to pull the trigger. We're in the later rounds of drafts. Gus Edwards is the pick for me. He has standalone value in arguably the run heaviest offense heading into this year with Baltimore. He's been incredibly efficient, and I do not think J.K. Dobbins handles a full workload. Is it a 50-50 split? No, probably not, but Gus Edwards could have standalone value, especially during bye weeks, even with his current role. Then came Tim Patrick and Matt Ryan. I think both of those picks are fine at this point in drafts. Tim Patrick going a little sneaky right now. But I'm going to look back to the wide receiver position. And you took a player I love in Michael Pittman. It's an offense I want to bet on right now in Indianapolis. I think they could be a little pass heavier this year just because they got Matt Ryan. I know they love to run the ball with Jonathan Taylor. But if Alec Pierce, who's an incredibly athletic, size-adjusted rookie coming out of Cincinnati, can take over that wide receiver 2 spot, he's a player I want to bet on late in drafts.
All right. I like both of those picks. And I like Alec Pierce a ton. I have a bunch of Alec Pierce ownership on Underdog. After Pierce came Odell, Khalil Herbert, Tyrion Davis-Price, Mecole Hardman, Chuba Hubbard, Jamal Williams, Zamir White. Now, normally I don't handcuff my running back, but I want to get your opinion real quick on this. Who do you think is the handcuff for McCaffrey? Is it Hubbard or is it Foreman? Or do you think is it just going to be a situation where you shouldn't handcuff them?
I think it's probably going to be a split between them. Hubbard was inefficient last year. Foreman was far more efficient, but again, better offense. So it's tough to evaluate their individual performances.
Okay. My lean would be on Foreman. I'm not going to go with either of them, though. I'm just going to go with Sony Michel and the upside that maybe if something was to happen to Chase Edmonds, he could slot in as the number 1 running back. We've seen Sony Michel actually be pretty decent recently. So I think Sony Michel could slot in there if something was to happen to Chase Edmonds. So the draft has been finished. We completed the draft. We did a great job. Real quick, we can each recap our teams. You want to go first? You want me to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. So I was picking from the 11 spot. I went Stephon Diggs, Aaron Jones, James Conner, Darren Waller, Mike Williams, Brandon Cooks, Cordarrelle Patterson, who has dual eligibility. He can be a running back or receiver in sleeper leagues. Gabe Davis, Trey Lance, Rob Gronkowski, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Darrell Henderson, Gus Edwards, and Alec Pierce.
All right. I think that was a very solid team. But it's funny how I basically took the higher price Jalen Hurts and you got discount Jalen Hurts, the unproven version. And then my picks, I went with Christian McCaffrey, Debo Samuel, AJ Brown, Travis Etienne, Michael Pittman Jr., Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jalen Hurts, Devin Singletary, Melvin Gordon, Hunter Henry, Alan Lazard, Jarvis Landry, Devontae Parker, and Sony Michel. Do you have any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I love your team. I think there's a couple really good picks here. And I think this is a lot similar to what maybe a home league would look like. If you do drafts like underdogs, some of them are far more sharp. You're not going to see like Kenneth Walker go in the 6th round. You're also probably not going to see Gus Edwards go towards the very end of drafts either. So always be thinking about who you're drafting in your home leagues. What values could you potentially be scooping up? And I think that's it. Those are the closing thoughts for me. Always consider your individual league.
Yeah, definitely. And every mock draft is not going to be exactly what happens in your league. Just doing mock drafts itself is very good practice, though, in my opinion. Before all of my drafts, I do a bunch of them. And if you guys want to do some best ball drafts, head on over to Underdog Fantasy. You can still use the old promo code Awesemo. I'm pretty sure that is still going to work. Or you can use the new promo code Stochastic. I love you guys all so much. I hope you guys have a great rest of your guys' day. Thank you to Matt for joining me for today's video. And let us know down below in the comment section who you thought had the better team. It is pretty close. I think both of our teams would absolutely dominate if this was a real league. So thank you guys for watching. Love you guys all. Have a great rest of your guys' day.